So, this is the new Ferrari Roma. So under the sculpted, gorgeous hood sits a somewhat familiar 3.8-liter twin-turbo V8. It is the same basic architecture that's in the Portofino. Here it's massaged to provide a stout 611 horsepower and 561 pound-feet of torque. But this car isn't just about the numbers. The Roma is meant more as a GT car without going all the way up to, a Lusso or something like that. This is sort of slotted a little bit above the Portofino, but on a different path than the Portofino. And I would say they've hit the mark pretty well. It's 0 to 60 in about 3.4 seconds, tops out at 199 miles an hour. But this is a more docile drive. It's more cruiser friendly. So paired up with that twin turbo V8 is an 8-speed double clutch gearbox. And in fact, they took this 8-speed gearbox from the new SF90 hybrid hypercar, except they had to add a reverse gear because in the SF90, reverse is done by the electric motors, so they added reverse gear. But you have reverse over here in this sort of metal looking, it's meant to be reminiscent of Ferrari's open metal gate, right? And the reverse button pulls down. You can go into automatic mode by pushing this middle one up, and it lights up and sends this little light up there. It's kind of cool. It looks like you would slot the sliders fore and aft, but it's just a quick touch and then electronically changes to that. So quite interesting. And speaking of shifting, of course, we've got Ferrari's gorgeous, beautiful paddle shifters that are column mounted, not wheel mounted, which I like unless I'm really hard in the corner, but you shouldn't be shifting gears in a corner anyway. But when you're coming out of a corner, if you haven't completely unwound the wheel and you want to get a little sideways, but they do work well. And the shift times are really fast. And 7th and 8th gear are actually meant to be almost overdrive gears so that you can really stretch fuel economy. And as I said that, the fuel level low came on. I have a range of 71 miles. But anyway, to improve fuel economy. And to me, gears 1 through 6 also seem a little long, especially because that power doesn't come on until a little higher up in the rev range. So you kind of got to be down by like 2nd gear to get really into the power if you're in normal driving conditions. But my goodness, is this car actually really fun to wind out. Woo! Oh my gosh. It's got Ferrari's side slip control so you can get more playful, and they changed some of the settings so when you're in race you actually have a little more freedom and flexibility than you do without going all the way to ESC off. And I would say that's a welcome change. Ferrari took away the bumpy mode button and added it to the Manettino. So now you just push the Manettino in, and then you've got bumpy road. You can definitely feel the difference in the suspension. The steering on this car is actually a little heavier. It's more meaty than like in the F8 or the 812. Ferrari steering has typically been almost feather light. There's only about 220 pounds of downforce on the car. And the downforce is really meant for stabilization. It's not meant to like really press the car down into the road. It's really more for if you're kind of up in the upper regions of speed and want to keep the car stable from blowing around. And most of that downforce takes place underneath the car, on the underbody. There's inlets underneath the really pretty front sort of shark nose bumper that channel air through and sort of suck down that front. And then that little wing is for about 30% of that downforce, depending upon where it's at. So it's not, again, the Roma isn't meant as a pure performance car. This is more a grand touring car that's comfortable and quiet, that you can go out and carve up some back roads if you want to. And you certainly can. And these roads are a little cold right now. It's only like 45 degrees outside. And you don't want to push these tires past their limits of adhesion and go careening off a cliff or into the wall of a mountain. But boy, the fun you can still have in a grand touring car. It's so good. Cripes. Whew. So I'm in auto right now, and it shifts right about 3,200 RPM. Red line is 7,500. It's not stratospheric or screaming, but the front wings over the front wheels, there's a nice little hump that comes up, and there's a nice little hood bulge that comes down the center line of the car as well. That helps to place the car. It's really, really easy to see, where your front wheels are because of those humps, those haunches. It's point and shoot. It's a twin turbo engine, but there's not lag. Lag? What lag? Oh, and the brakes. Oh, my ears are popping. Woo! And it sounds good. Ferrari's got their gas particulate filter in here to meet all the Euro emissions. And what happens typically when you do systems like that is it changes the sound of the car. And it removes some of the raucous noise that you can get. But the engineers at Ferrari changed some of the shape of the sports exhausts, actually to an oval, so that still take back some of that more aggressive sound. And I think it sounds good. I think it sounds real good. But it's also meant to be able to blend into the background if you need it to. If you just want to cruise, which we can push that button up and go to automatic and do just that. Not too bad. Not too bad at all. The Roma is all about design elegance, and it really does hit all those check boxes. It's so pretty on the outside. It looks a lot different than anything else in the lineup. They're trying to bring back some of the classic, beautiful lines from 50s Ferraris, 1950s Ferraris, but with a contemporary twist. And that contemporary twist takes place inside the cabin. We've got this massive screen in front of us. It's interactive and has all sorts of stuff going on instead of their traditional analog tachometer and what they've had the last few years, a couple screens on each side to interact with the different items. But even the engine start-stop button isn't an actual button now. It's a touch haptic sensor sort of button to get things rolling. But the touch things are interesting. There is a solid haptic response, but I'm more tactile than that. So for me, it would just take a while to get used to. I will say the cabin looks gorgeous. It looks absolutely phenomenal. And even when bright light is hitting these screens, it's not affecting being able to see the screens. So that's always a concern when you have just digital screens to look at. And Ferrari has gone above and beyond with their thought process for having all of the controls on the wheel. So there's now touchpad on the right-hand side of the wheel to interact with all of the different things in here. And I mean, this wheel feels great, first off, but it has everything on it. You've got a 5 position for the first time Manatino, and then you got your wipers and lights are over here. On the back of the wheel, there's, on the left-hand side, volume for your infotainment, and on the right side, there's channel switching on the backhand side. The turn signals are still on the top, left and right. That's pretty crazy. Literally, everything is on the wheel, except for what you have on this other big screen over here that is now set in portrait mode. And optional on the Ferrari Roma, like it is in a couple other Ferrari models, is a touch screen for the passenger side, which has performance information. You can control the audio system and so on and so forth over there from the passenger side. This is really leaps and bounds, I wouldn't say ahead, but different than other Ferrari models of the past, I don't know, definitely for the last 15 or 20 years. And it's a 2+2. I don't think a single human being could fit back there, but your dogs could, and your purse could, or your briefcase, or things like that. My frame of mind is that any Ferrari is a daily driver, especially any of the current production cars. This really takes it a step beyond. The Roma is absolutely a wonderful car. It's beautiful inside and out. The Roma is basically built off the Portofino chassis, but it is its own thing. It really is its own car. And with all this new tech going on in here, not to mention the way the suspension's been changed, the way the Manatino's been changed, it really is its own animal, and I say it's a good one. And it handles so well. What a thing. What a thing. Ferrari, keep going. Just keep going.